Hey guys, you're watching Dansky, the place to be to develop your creative skills. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how you can add light rays to a scene, all in Photoshop. So let's jump into it. Rightio, so we're now in Photoshop and you can see that I've opened up an image. We have a corridor or a hallway with a door at the end. And if I just zoom in, we're going to add some light rays. So light is coming through the doorway and emanating from the center out towards the left, up above, to the right, and down below. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the bottom of the layers panel and create a new layer. And then grab that brush tool from the toolbar on the left and click the drop down at the top. And we can choose a brush here. So there's lots we can choose from. Let's just go for this one here, soft, round, pressure, size. And this is a very feathered brush, so we have a nice soft edge. So what we can do is we can actually change that hardness up a little bit. So we could bring that up to say 50%, and it just makes the edge a little bit less soft. In fact, that's probably a bit too much. So we'll just go to, let's say, 40%. Anywhere between, let's say, 40% and 0% is pretty good. So we have a little bit of softness to the edge of our brush. And of course we want the color to be white. So from the color picker, let's just drag this all the way to the top left and click OK. And remember, you can quickly adjust the size of your brush using the left and right square brackets on your keyboard. And if we draw on our layer 1, it looks something like this, which is fine. Nice squiggly line. Not quite what we want though. So the next thing we're going to need to do is go up to Window and down to Brush Settings, and it will bring up this panel here where we can control our brush in a bit more detail. So first of all, we have Shape Dynamics and we have this checked, and you can see here our brush at the moment is just one flowing line. And if we grab that size jitter, you can see it starts to create a little bit of variation in that. And the goal within this panel here for us is to create a degree of randomness with our brush. So minimum diameter, make sure that that is set to 0%, because if you have it at 100, you can see that this is a lot less random and very consistent in width all the way through. So bring that to 100 and we get some really small bits as well as some larger areas as well. Next, we're going to switch on transfer, and I like to bring the opacity jitter up a little bit. So everything just isn't the same color. Again, we're just creating more randomness with our brush stroke. So some will be a bit softer and a bit more transparent than others. And next we're going to turn on scattering. Now this is a really important one, and if you look at the preview at the bottom here, we still have all of this. Even if it's a bit more random, it's all in one line. As we gradually increase the scatter, you can see it literally does just that. It scatters every single brush stroke, and I like to bring this all the way up to 1000. And if I zoom out now and start brushing, even though I'm using a very small brush here, you can see that it's very random in the opacity of each brush stroke, random in the size, and random in the position. So now we've created this specific brush to use, what we're going to do on our layer 1 is zoom into the center. And with that brush tool, we're going to bring that brush size down so it's nice and small, and just do a little cluster around here. So you can see we've got that variety in sizes. So even though I'm using a really small brush, we still get some really small ones and really large ones. So we'll just try that again. Probably a bit too small there. Bring it up. And I just want to draw in a few around here. Now the way we're going to do these light rays is it's going to be a lot softer and more transparent towards the edges, so we're going to have more of them clustered together around the doorway where the light is going to be passing through. So we've got more of them here and they're smaller. Next, what we're going to do is increase that brush size. Remember, you can use the left and right square brackets on the keyboard, or just adjust it with the size slider here. And if you do make a mistake at any point, or it just doesn't look exactly how you want it to, just go to Edit and step backwards. So we'll do a few more now, a little bit too big there. So a lot of this is trial and error. And we're just going to add a few more slightly larger ones, just a bit further out. And you can see I'm not going too crazy here. And again, we're going to increase that brush size. And just do a few more all the way out here. So I'm just very quickly drawing these in. If they don't look right, I'm just using that shortcut for the step backwards. And as we get towards the edge, they're going to be a lot more sparse. So something like this. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And if this does go wrong, just delete this layer by dragging it to the trash, create a new layer and have another go. That's totally fine. But let's go with something like this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to double click on layer 1 and I'm going to call this light rays. And I'm going to right click this and select convert to smart object. Now the reason I'm converting it to a smart object is I'm about to apply a filter to this smart object. Now if I apply a filter to a normal layer that isn't a smart object, it will apply that filter and then that is final. But now it's a smart object, I can apply a blur and a radial blur. And when I click OK in a moment, it will list this as a smart filter, and I can then edit that smart filter at a later date, or I can delete it altogether. So it just gives us a bit more flexibility, even if it does increase your file size a little bit. So we could use spin, and it will spin this around in a circle. That's not quite what we want for this tutorial. I'll show you anyway though, just so you can see. So we'll turn up the amount, and we'll just set the quality to draft for now. And we've got spin. So if we click OK, it looks like that, which is kind of cool. Not what we want. So let's just do that one again. And we'll use zoom. And you can see, there we go. We have those light rays emanating from that doorway there in the center. And they're a lot more concentrated around the doorway itself. And then they become a bit fainter and a bit more sparse as we get towards the edge. So what we can actually do is we can repeat that last action here. You can go down to here and do it all again. Or if you're using the latest version of Photoshop, you have your last filter at the top. So we'll click that. And you can repeat this 2 or 3 times until all of these really do become rays. They just become this solid line all the way through. If I go back, you can see they're a little bit broken. So it makes quite a difference there. So we have created those rays. Now what we're going to do next is we're actually going to add a layer mask to this from the bottom of the layers panel. And then from the brush drop down for the brush tool here, what we're going to do is we're going to select the soft round pressure opacity brush and make sure your hardness is at 0%. We want maximum feathering around the edge of the brush, so nice and soft. Now what I'm going to do is actually bring the brush size up so it is ginormous. So around the edge you can see we have these light rays and they quite confidently touch the edge of the canvas. So with that very soft brush, I'm just going to brush into the layer mask here. Remember to remove from an image with a mask, use black. If you want to brush back into the mask and bring it back, you use white. So essentially, with the mask selected and brushing into the mask with black, it's going to remove everything we brush over from our light rays layer. So I'm using a very soft brush, so I'm just literally just gently brushing around the edges, just to very softly remove the edge of those light rays. And you can make the brush even bigger if you like. Now the reason I'm making the brush so huge is because if I make it smaller and start brushing around, you can see it creates a much harder kind of cut where it ends, and I want it to be a really, really soft blend towards the edge. So they're fading out as they get to the edge of the canvas. So I'm just going to do that. There we go. So still a lot more concentrated in the center. And one last thing I'm going to do is create a new layer from the bottom of the layers panel. Just check white is my color and grab that brush tool. And again, we're going to use this soft feathered brush. So let's just zoom in on the doorway itself and bring that brush size down. And I'm just going to single left click. and it just adds a bit of a glow around the doorway. We can just name this layer glow. And if I turn that on and off, you can see it just makes these light rays and the light source a bit more believable. And if you want to, you can adjust the opacity just to tone it down a little bit. You've got maximum flexibility here. And there we go, we're done. And there we go. That's how to add light rays to a scene, all in Photoshop. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you've got any questions or comments, please do drop them down below. A huge thank you to the people who support me on Patreon. If you'd like to find out more information, there is a link down in the description. But as always, like this video if you enjoyed it, take care, and I'll see you next time.